Hey, Instagram, what's going on? It's Josh Ellis, editor-in-chief of Success Magazine, plugging in here. Maybe you guys can hear me a little bit better. I hope that your week is going amazing. I joined you on Monday and gave you some ideas for how to focus on what is most important. If you haven't watched that video, go check out our IGTV. Super excited about every story that's in the November-December issue, which is available on newsstands right now and at store.success.com. If you have not checked out that issue, then find your way to your local newsstand or, as I said, store.success.com, and you can pick it up. There is so much cool stuff in there, but I'm really digging that story that I shared on Monday, and I might just put the link to it up again in the chat here, because as I said, this is a deadline week for us, and I am just burning to get the magazine to press. I want to give you guys a little bit some of my productivity tips. People were asking on Monday about how do I hit deadlines so well, and I think that that's one of my strengths. And if you're in the the journalism business, then you have to hit deadlines, and they become really sort of the inspiration, the thing that keeps you going forward, the thing that motivates you. And so for me, especially if it's long enough that I know from month to month, issue to issue, how I'm going to sort of structure my workflow to get the magazine out. You guys still hearing me okay? I see that it's been pausing a little bit. But okay, looks like we're good now. Cool. So that's one part. Second part is prioritizing, right? Every issue, our biggest story is the cover story. And the one that's on newsstands right now features Pyle Kadakia. And she is an incredible entrepreneur. But I was telling somebody this today. Once you have that cover story, that's the first big domino to fall, right? Once you have that cover story, then you know what you're going to do with the rest of the issue. And so in your project or whatever line of work that might be, it's all about prioritizing, understanding what the first real domino to fall is, the biggest question you have to ask yourself. So once you've done that, then it makes things a lot easier. I was saying, I told somebody that we knew what Pyle's story was. She's an incredibly successful businesswoman whose company, ClassPass, became a unicorn this year, $1 billion valuation, and then COVID hit. And it put her business in as much risk as any, because gyms were closed and people could not go work out. That's what their business was built on. You can watch a great IGTV on our IGTV at Success Magazine. There is a great interview that she did with Jay Shetty, another former Success cover person who just happens to be one of her best friends, where she was talking about all the ways that they pivoted. And we have a podcast interview with Pyle as well. But the issue becomes all about the pivot once you understand what that first domino is. Again, we're talking about prioritizing. So starts with the cover story, and then you can branch out there and understand what the issue theme is going to be, and understand what the other stories that you're going to try and tell are. You have to understand, of course, as we're speaking about the process of just hitting your deadlines month after month, project after project. You have to understand how to get yourself into flow. And that's what the deep work story that I talked about on Monday was all about. Um, it uh, it sorry, it was partly about getting your your environs just right, so that you could focus. So our writer Mike Mooney, he talks about setting up an office. All right, I have vamped long enough. We have our special guest with her. Let me bring her on now. Here she is. Let's see if we have her. Waiting.
Hello.
There she is. Look who it is. Hello, Miss Rachel Hollis.
Hi, how you doing? Hold on, I'm
I'm
trying
doing.
to get a location that I can sit down and chat with you.
I'm doing great. It's been a while.
It has.
So I had the pleasure of interviewing Rachel for our March 2019 cover story.
Wow.
What a simpler time, right?
So real.
Those were the days. Okay, so you guys know Rachel. She's the beautiful, the talented, amazing Rachel Hollis, best-selling author, of course, of Girl Wash Your Face, Girl Stop Apologizing. Her brand new book is Didn't See That Coming, putting life back together when your world falls apart. As I said, she's been on the cover of Success before. She has taken the country by storm with her Rise conferences and Rise Live these days. And I'm just so excited to have you on, Rachel. The book has been out a couple weeks, right?
Yeah, it's been out a couple weeks. And like you said, a simpler time, even thinking about a world where we could get together and do conferences or get together and do interviews, right? Like get to hang out with people in person. It feels like such a different world. But yeah, I think like most people, 2020 has been all about how do we pivot and how do we do our best to show up well, even in hard seasons. And we're still kicking. So that's what matters.
Yeah, it's been getting a ton of buzz. And I got to say, it's like just the perfect message for so many people right now, because they didn't see anything that has come their way this year. What a perfect subject. What a perfect title.
Thanks. I was in the midst of editing the book that was meant to come out this year. And probably those first few weeks that we were in quarantine, I was working on a book that was supposed to come out this December. And I tend to write with a lot of humor, and I'm pretty irreverent. And so I was rereading this thing I had written, and it just felt so tone deaf. Because at that point too, in late March, we were all so fearful, and no one really knew what to expect, and it just felt wrong. And so I tried to think of what was the story I wanted to tell, and what was the thing that I wanted to talk about if I could put something out in 2020. And I just started writing, and this is what came out.
What is, if for someone who has not heard much about the book, why does it mean so much to you to tell the story now?
Well, I think nobody knows how, well, maybe New Zealand, but nobody knows how to deal with a global pandemic in 2020. Like there was no rule book for us, right? But there are tools and techniques and tactics for how you deal with the side effects of what's happening. So how do you deal with crisis? How do you deal with trauma? How do you navigate, through grief? And I felt like I had some of those tools in my toolbox based on past experiences. And there was something really powerful for me about writing down those stories that were hard to tell, in the hopes that they would be helpful to other people. And so I always think that if you can turn your pain into a lesson for yourself, or maybe a lesson for other people, then the pain has meaning. And so that's why it has felt like a really special thing to get to do that.
I'll put a link into the description of the video once we sign off. But for anybody who wants to put on another tab, you can check out the book at Didn't See That Coming, newbook.com. Rachel, I know you're
a great student of personal development, like the all-timers, like the icons. And
Right.
so much of personal development is about developing the right attitude. Jim Rohn, right? This was a big Jim Rohn topic, that you can't control much in life except your attitude. And so,
Right.
take me back to March, April, as the uncertainty is starting to hit us all. Even like later in the spring, when there's a ton of social unrest going on.
Yeah.
How has your study of personal development kind of helped you through along the way?
Well, I feel like, it really is something that I continue to study forever. Like, I dig back into the things I've already read, and I went to my first UPW conference years ago. And in that first, March, early April, I was like, oh, I wish what I would give, right? To like be back in a conference doing, learning from someone and just sort of feeling that energy of being around other people. And I think it absolutely was, the lessons that I've learned in the past that was helpful. But what was really helpful for me, and what I think can be really helpful for anyone watching, is to look back on past experiences when you have been resilient, when you did continue to show up, when you found a way. And so for me as a business owner, that was some of the biggest anxiety I had this year. A huge portion of my revenue is based on live events, in-person events for thousands of people. And suddenly I find myself unable to do that. And so we pivoted really fast to virtual, which is not something I ever could have anticipated doing. And I did that because I was looking at a past experience. So for me, I've been an entrepreneur 17 years. So I have taken my company through 2008, 2009. So I've navigated a recession before. And so when I'm not going to lie, we go into quarantine as a company, I drank a lot of vodka that week. I am not even going to lie to you. I don't care how much personal development work I've done. I was doing a little bit of numbing out that week. And then I have that moment where I'm like, okay, you wallowed, you cried about this, let's go, figure it out. And then I have to ask myself, okay, when you did this before, how did we do it? Okay, we buckled down on cash flow. We moved through inventory so that we had a lot of space and runway. Like, I knew things to do because I had been navigated a recession before, or maybe you lost your job, or maybe you've lost your business, or maybe you're trying to figure out something in your life. Look back at a past experience that you did navigate and ask yourself if there's anything that you can glean from that to apply to today.
Whenever a couple of weeks ago, originally, then we announced that we were going to have the opportunity for really cool Insta Live with you. We put out the call for questions, and man, you drive interest, Rachel, because we got a ton of great questions. You want to roll through some of these?
Yeah, I love that.
All right, so I have them here. I got a few highlighted. We'll try to get to a few of these. Alicia Carty says that we all know you embrace this season of change with motivation and innovation and positivity. When were you truly able to shift your mindset to one of optimism? So like, what was a turning point where you're like, okay, we are going to get through this?
In 2020 or in my life?
Yeah, 2020.
2020.
But it might, as you just said, it probably relates to, 2007, 2008, or other hard times.
For me, I think the craziest, hardest part about 2020, and I don't know if it's felt like this for you guys, but it feels like we haven't been asked to pivot just once. We've been asked to pivot again and again and again. And so, to be honest, it's starting to feel like that right now. And we're in October, and this started in March. So we have navigated in our company what has felt like quite a lot of crisis, and like, okay, I know we're not the only business who did this. We're like, okay, are we going to be able to have that event we plan to have in June? Oh, okay, no, okay, we're going to be able to have the event in July. And it was just sort of like, one by one, dominoes kept falling. And every time a domino falls, then there's all of these possibilities. What do we do, and how do we navigate this, and how do we show up well for this community who has invested money with us? And we want to, do we cancel the event? Do we pivot? Like, so many people were trying to figure that out in real time. So it has felt, this year has felt really stressful, to be honest with you. And so it feels like truly, I have always been optimistic. You know, after that first week, I really do live in that place. And that is a learned behavior. That is not, I did not come from a childhood that would have taught me to believe that tomorrow is going to be better than today. But I have taught myself that in my adult life. And I just act as if, and then eventually sort of reality catches up with the way I have been acting, if that makes sense.
Gotcha. Okay, we got another one here from M, who says, and this is the overarching subject of the book, so let's go high level, Rachel. How do I handle the sudden changes that distort my plans?
I think what I've learned in the last decade is acceptance. There's a time in my life where I would have numbed out. I would have tried to pretend it wasn't happening. I wouldn't have looked at reality. And so I think what I've learned is that I can pivot so much faster if I will accept what is, if I will let go of the disappointment or the anger or the it should have been this way. And if I can accept it, then I can figure out where to go from here. But so many people will spend so much emotion and so much time swirling in the vortex of it shouldn't happen to me, it shouldn't be this way. They're shoulding all over themselves. So by just kind of going like, okay, this sucks. I wish it wasn't happening, but it is. Now what? Is really how I can sort of kickstart the ideas to pivot in a new direction.
Here's one from Hannah, who says that she had a I didn't see that coming moment a few years ago, and she managed to rebuild from it, but she has not trusted her self-judgment since then. I guess she got herself into a problem, or she let her judgment got her into a problem, and she's been a little skittish ever since.
Wow. I mean, that makes sense, right? Anytime we've gone through something where it's almost like trauma, it's like personal trauma. You've walked through something, it didn't work out the way that you thought it would. My instinct, though, would be to ask, is it better for her to approach life in this way, approach it with trepidation and not really trust herself? Or would it be better to just trust herself and know that come what may, she is strong enough to deal with the consequences because she's done it before? Like, which one is going to give you the most freedom, the most leverage, the most opportunity? My gut would say, as an entrepreneur, as a person, I would rather make a decision. Like, I do not have analysis paralysis at all. I make a decision and we're going. Because I have trust in myself, because I have history that tells me that this is true, that no matter what happens, I'm going to figure it out. And so I would say for her, I think that there's way more opportunity and freedom for you in just trusting yourself and being willing to trust yourself to handle it if it doesn't go the way you thought it would.
I think I remember when I interviewed you way back when, different time. At that cute little Airbnb in Austin.
Yeah.
We were talking and totally agreed on this point of getting a handle on what the worst case scenario actually is. And once you like think honestly about what the worst that could happen actually is, and then you're able to sort of see like, all right, well, here's what I would do if that happened.
Right.
Then it doesn't seem that bad.
Right. Yeah, I had the like total blessing of getting to interview Elizabeth Gilbert on my podcast this summer. And she was saying, write a letter to yourself and say, the thing I am most afraid of happening is, and then fill that out, and then follow it up with, and then if that happens, and then fill that out, and then if that happens, and fill that out. And you just keep sort of following the rabbit trail down until you realize that what you're most afraid of actually is not worth the energy and the effort that you're putting into it.
Here's one from Tracy, which I think we're talking about fear, basically. And that's something that holds a lot of people back from an entrepreneurial, go for it type side hustle dream. And she says, if there was one tip you could give to someone just starting out as an entrepreneur, what would it be?
Oh my gosh, only one tip to an entrepreneur. My gut is to say self-awareness about your blind spots. Because when we're starting something, or frankly, even when we've been doing something for a while, I think that we will gravitate toward the thing that we do really well. So for instance, when I started my business, I would gravitate toward marketing, communication, content, because those are the things I did well. And I would ignore the stuff that I sucked at. I would ignore finances. I would ignore taxes. I would ignore things that really mattered. And if I had just had the courage and the self-awareness to face where I struggled, I would have either figured it out quicker, or I would have understood, hey, you're never going to be awesome at this, so you probably should hire someone to help you in this area. But I would have gone 10 times as fast if I would have just been real with myself about my strengths and my weaknesses.
I will leave you with this one. And I've probably asked you it before because it's a good question for anybody who's had success. And you know, we ask our interviewees this. But I'm curious if your answer has changed any in the couple of years since I talked to you last. And that is just, I see it here because Shaya asked, what is your personal definition of success?
What is my definition of success? Gosh, I remember what I said years ago. Today, it feels like creative freedom. And this is something I'm reaching for more and more because, interestingly enough, when you experience success in a certain area, a certain genre, certain style of thing, that's really what people want from you most. And, you know, my joke is always, I never thought that I would be known as being a writer. Books were just this little hobby, this little thing that I did, and no one really read them, but I didn't care because I was just so happy to be able to get to do my thing. And then you experience success, and that's kind of what people want to see from you. So for me today, it looks like getting closer and closer to the ability to create things that I'm really excited about, regardless of whether or not that is what other people would prefer. And then I also think success looks like, oh, this sounds so cheesy, but I just think like a beautiful life. And when I think of a beautiful life, I think of my kids, my friends, good dinners, really cozy sweatpants, you know, just that's really what 2020 has taught me this year, is it has brought me back to those elements that matter most. So I think, man, if I have enough to create that beautiful life with these core people, that is success. And everything else that comes on top of it is icing.
I think it's so important for people to just create their own definition so that they're not trying to live by anybody else's standards. Like if your definition is like, I just get to work from home and I wear sweatpants and like I have Amy's pad thai in the freezer and I love that. And I get to do work that I enjoy, then like you're successful.
Right.
It has been such a pleasure, Rachel. The URL again, like I said, I'll put it in the description, is didn'tseethatcomingnewbook.com. It's another mega hit. I know it. All right.
But
Thanks so much, Rachel. I appreciate it.
Bye.
Thank all of you for tuning in. And we'll see you next time. Keep following Success Magazine on Instagram. Later.